Have you ever stopped and wondered why some leaders, some organizations, can inspire this incredible, die-hard loyalty? I mean, loyalty where people will go way out of their way, even put up with inconvenience, just to be a part of what they're doing. Meanwhile, others, with pretty much the same products or goals, just don't. Well, it turns out there's this powerful, kind of hidden pattern at play. And once you see it, it changes absolutely everything.
So here's what we're going to break down in this explainer. We'll kick things off with what's called the inspiration gap. Then we'll uncover a really simple but profound idea, the golden circle. We'll see how it's actually hardwired into our biology, learn how it rallies people who believe, and finally, we'll look at the single biggest challenge that any inspired organization is going to face.
All right, so let's start with the problem. Why is it that true, genuine inspiration is so dang rare? Most companies, most leaders, they try to motivate us, but they almost always fall back on a very specific, and honestly, a very flawed set of tools.
I mean, just think about it for a second. Apple has this tiny slice of the global computer market, right? But they somehow lead the entire industry in innovation and profit. And Martin Luther King Jr., his personal struggles weren't unique in the civil rights movement, yet he's the one who inspired a nation to fundamentally change. So what was their secret? It wasn't what they did, it was why they did it.
See, for just about everyone else, the default tools are what Simon Sinek calls manipulations. Things like dropping the price, running a promotion, a 2-for-1 deal, using fear. That old saying, no one ever got fired for hiring IBM, that's fear. Or those aspirational messages like 6 easy steps to a happier you. Even peer pressure, and just plain old novelty, the new shiny thing. They all fall into this bucket.
And here's the kicker. These manipulations, they actually work. They can totally drive a sale or get someone to vote for you. But, and this is a huge but, they don't create loyalty. Loyalty is when someone is willing to turn down a better product or a better price just to keep doing business with you. Manipulations, they just create transactions. And the cost is that every single transaction starts from scratch. They don't build trust, and trust is the only currency that really truly lasts.
Okay, so if manipulation isn't the answer, then what is? Well, this brings us to this beautifully simple model that completely flips traditional communication on its head. It's called the golden circle.
This is it. Just 3 circles. On the very outside, you have what. Every single company on the planet knows what they do. A little further in, you have how. Some companies know how they do it, their unique selling proposition or their secret sauce. But right there in the middle, at the very core, is the why. And very, very few people or organizations can clearly tell you why they do what they do. And when I say why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's just a result. Your why is your purpose, your cause, your belief. It's the reason your organization even exists.
Now, most companies communicate from the outside in. They lead with their product. We make great computers. It's logical, sure, but it's completely uninspiring. Inspired leaders, like Apple, do the exact opposite. They flip it. They start with why they exist, their core belief. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. Suddenly, the product, the what, just becomes the tangible proof of that belief. And the difference is just profound. One is a sales pitch. The other is a declaration of identity. One asks you for your money. The other invites you to join a cause.
And get this. This isn't just some clever communication trick or a marketing gimmick. The power of the golden circle is actually rooted deep in the biology of the human brain. And that's exactly what makes it so incredibly effective.
If you were to look at a cross-section of the human brain, it actually maps perfectly onto the golden circle. That outer layer, the neocortex, that corresponds to the what level. That's our rational, analytical brain. It gets facts, figures, and language. But the inner 2 sections, the how and the why, they correspond to our limbic brain.
And this right here is the crucial point. Our limbic brain is where all our feelings, like trust and loyalty, come from. It's the part that drives all of our behavior, all of our decision-making. But here's the catch. It has no capacity for language. This is literally why we get gut feelings. A decision just feels right, but we have a really hard time putting into words exactly why. So when you communicate from the inside out, when you start with why, you're talking directly to the part of the brain that makes decisions. Which brings us to the core thesis of this entire idea, the big takeaway. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. The what you do, your product or service, simply serves as the tangible proof of your why. Your goal isn't just to sell to people who need what you have. Your goal is to find and do business with people who believe what you believe. Okay, so if the whole point is to find people who believe what you believe, how in the world do you do that at scale? How do you take a belief and turn it into a full-blown movement? Well, it turns out there's a predictable law for exactly how that happens.
This is it. It's called the law of diffusion of innovations. You've probably seen this bell curve before. It shows how any new idea or product makes its way through society. You've got the innovators on the far left, then the early adopters, then the big chunk of the majority, and finally, the laggards. Now, most businesses aim all their marketing right at that big chunk in the middle, the mass market. But that is a huge mistake.
You see, the tipping point for mass market success doesn't happen until you've gotten through to about 15 to 18% of the market. You simply cannot reach that majority without first winning over the innovators and the early adopters. And who are those people? They're the ones who make decisions with their gut. They are the people who buy your why.
Okay, let's look at a real-world example, TiVo. When TiVo first launched, it was a revolutionary product, backed by tons of cash and a huge PR push. But their message was just a list of features. They said, we have a new product. It pauses live TV. It skips commercials. They told us what their product did. And even with that amazing technology, the company struggled for years. They just couldn't break through.
Now, imagine if they had started with why. What if their message had been something like, if you're the kind of person who likes to have total control over every aspect of your life, boy, do we have a product for you. See, that's a belief, that's a why. And the features, pausing live TV, skipping commercials, they just become the proof of that belief. That message speaks directly to the early adopters who share that value, and they would have spread the word for them.
And this brings us to maybe the most powerful example of all. Think about the March on Washington. 250,000 people didn't show up on a hot summer day in DC to hear a detailed 12-point plan. They showed up for themselves. They showed up because they shared a dream, a belief in a different, better future for America. Dr. Ting gave the world an I have a dream speech, not an I have a plan speech. He gave people a why they could rally around.
Now, here's the final piece of the puzzle. Once an organization actually achieves success by starting with why, it faces its single greatest challenge, just holding on to that clarity as it grows.
Sinek calls this the split. It's that moment when an organization gets so big that the founder's initial passion and gut feeling can't guide every single decision anymore. The tangible stuff, the metrics, the what, they start to take over. And the intangible why, it starts to get, well, fuzzy. This is the danger zone.
And that's the great paradox, isn't it? The very success that came from having a crystal clear why is the thing that threatens to water it down. When what you do becomes disconnected from why you do it, that's when inspiration fades, and that's when manipulation starts to creep back in. The real challenge is to keep measuring the why, to keep the cause alive, not just the what.
Ultimately, this isn't just about business or marketing. It's about how we connect with each other, how we inspire each other. And it all comes back to this one single, powerful question. Leaders inspire action, yes, but it all starts by knowing your purpose. The source of all that passion, all that inspiration, is knowing the answer to this one thing. So I'll leave you with this. What is your why?